What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Talkin' Soccer. I am your host, Justin Horniker, and we need to talk more about Manchester United. Thought I was done after this weekend, but some important news coming out of this Monday, coming out of the transfer window as United are prepared to move on from Frankie De Jong, it sounds like. Let's talk about Frankie De Jong first before we talk about United's emergency transfer targets that they're moving into. Frankie De Jong is very adamant to stay at Barcelona, according to reports from Fab and others, and that's his right. He signed a contract, he signed an extension, he should be allowed to keep this contract that he signed, but Barcelona are seemingly doing everything they can to get him out of this contract, including pulling that next lever, which is apparently accuse Frankie De Jong of criminal behavior. I guess they're not accusing Frankie De Jong. They're accusing the past administration of criminally signing this contract. I don't know what grounds they have to accuse them of this outside of previous administration signing people to too much money. I guess that's criminal now. But I think the next lever that Barcelona are going to enact, they're this close to planting drugs in Frankie De Jong's locker and calling the police on themselves to get him out of the contract. It's like everyone wants Frankie De Jong out of his contract except for Frankie De Jong. It's a very interesting scene. So apparently, after all this ordeal, United have started looking elsewhere, which includes one Rabiot from Juventus. Adrien Rabiot appears to be the replacement target. It's reported to be around 15 million euros that they're acquiring him for. All right, let's get this out of the way. Adrien Rabiot is not Frankie De Jong, and the Adrien Rabiot signing is definitely a correction to De Jong not happening. But there's been a lot of overreaction to saying that Rabiot is a bad player, saying Rabiot, won't be a upgrade for United, and that's just not true. Rabiot is a French international. He starts for Juventus. He's been a very important player in Juventus Serie A campaigns. And he's a player that is very defensively sound. I think he's a silky passer, short distances. If you look at his chart overall, which I'll post here, he's not extremely accurate in terms of passing, especially when compared to Frankie De Jong like this chart does, but he's a very solid defensive midfielder, which is something that United needs. And I think Ten Hag could use Rabiot in a very important way, in a very instrumental way to Ten Hag's system. And especially if you compare and contrast to what we saw in this weekend's game where United had a lot of room in front of the defense, and United were left, especially since their fullbacks are being allowed creativity, being allowed freedom to roam upfield and roam into the attacking space, it leaves a lot of vulnerability to United's defense, which you saw, and allowing 2 goals when they probably shouldn't have been allowing 2 goals. It gives them a little more flexibility and a little more ability, not just flexibility, but the ability to actually carry out his game plan. So I kind of like Adrien Rabiot. I know that you're probably going to go down in the comments and tell me why I shouldn't, but I think it's a step up from what they have in either Fred or McTominay. I think that the partnership with Christian Erikson, especially if they're going to stay with a back, with a double pivot, could be a good one. In my ideal formation, I would have, either Martial or Ronaldo up front. I would have on the wings, of course, your Sancho, your Rashford, if you're going to kind of continue with that front trident. In the midfield, you could have, Bruno up top, especially if you're going to go with a 4-3-3. You could have Bruno up top. You could have Rabiot and then Erikson. I think that's a pretty good midfield contingent. Obviously, you would wish that they would upgrade from Rabiot, but giving this, I think that's a good attacking structure. And then you have Shaw, Martinez, Maguire, Varane, and then Delot on the wings as a fullback. It's an interesting lineup. It's definitely not one that's going to win you the Premier League. I don't want to get that out of control, but I think it's one that's definitely demonstrably better than what they have right now, what they're putting on the field right now. Which brings us to the next point, which is, it's not a critique of Rabiot, it's a critique of Manchester United's recruitment in general. And they bring in Ten Hag, who doesn't trust United scouting, which why would you, given the recruitment the past couple of years? There's been fan protests about the recruitment and the amount of money that they're spending, which, you go from a potentially large acquirement of Frankie De Jong to only spending 15 million euros on Rabiot. You're battling against the Chelseas, against the Tottenhams, against the Arsenals, who are, trying to compete for those Champions League spots. Obviously Liverpool, Man City, but they're kind of a step above, right? But you're competing against teams who have spent 300 million euros in this transfer window, and you haven't spent anywhere close to that. In fact, you've lost almost as much as you brought in, right? You're just kind of keeping that status quo, and your striker situation is up in the air because Ronaldo's trying to leave. Martial's injury seems to be dragging on. And with that case, then you don't have a striker, which leads to the next rumor, which is that United are going after Marko Arnautovic as their replacement for Ronaldo, which he's probably going to end up being the backup striker more than anything, especially with Europa League play. But it's a vast overreaction of someone who can score but has had a lot of off-field problems and some on-field problems with racist remarks in the past. It's just going to lead to more fan frustration and more of these fan protests that we've been seeing over and over again. And it makes you wonder, if the Glazers will ever take notice, or they'll ever change anything, because it's just more of the same again and again and again. You just wonder, what's it going to take for United to change their approach? Is it going to be Ten Hag getting more embedded in the system to be able to make those changes in recruitment and scouting, or is it just going to be more of the same of a very talented coach just being wasted with a lack of players? This team isn't talented. And yes, they're talented players, but as it's constructed with what Ten Hag's trying to do, it just doesn't work. So let me know what you think down in the comments. I'd love to know what you think of Rabiot. I obviously have my opinion, but I'd love to know yours. And let me know if you think that United have anything left in the tank this window. Hopefully over the winter, we'll have better scouting. We'll have something up the sleeve. All right, we'll talk soon.